Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm Wiso Vasquez from FootMexSource.com, bringing you the latest headlines, the latest stories, the latest drama from all of the Mexican national team, including Liga MX, Europeos, and all of the other teams like the U20, U17s, anything related with Mexican football. With me, a very special person, one that probably has the most voice in and around Twitter and the internet. He's known as Tom Marshall, better known as Mexico World Cup on Twitter. And if you've read his stuff, he is one of the best when it comes to Mexican football. Of the Mexican Soccer Show, I'm listening to myself because I didn't mute myself. So there we go. Drama from all of the technical difficulties.
Good start.
Ready to go. Tom, how are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, all good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir. Well, let's start with how you've been. We haven't talked to you in a while. You've been vacationing around all over the world. Good thing. You get a chance to travel. I know that you were in a lot of places where our Europeos are obviously playing. Now, was that a coincidence, or did you just kind of sidetrack to all the places where Carlos Vela, also Guillermo Ochoa, the Dos Santos brothers? I mean, is that how it went?
Bit of both. I mean, I came back to Manchester for Christmas with the family and all that, and from Manchester and stuff, you can get flights to southern Spain for like 1,000 pesos, about a bit under $100 and stuff. So took advantage and went down there and checked out a Malaga game and Granada, Cordoba, and a Sevilla game. So got to see a few of the Mexican players. Jonathan Dos Santos was on. Giovanni came on for a bit, and Carlos Vela. And I believe it was the first time I saw Vela live, so really interesting. It was it's good to get the perspective of when Mexican players go over there, like what the situation is, and not when they play the Barcelona, Real Madrid, but when Vela has to go from the Basque Country, from Real Sociedad up there in the north to all the way down to Granada on a really freezing cold winter's night, and it was good stuff.
Good, great. I mean, it's good to see that you got a chance to go out there, and like you're saying, you're back home. You're in Manchester, England, and great for you. Just a couple of things with the Mexico Soccer Show today. We usually have a full house. It was a little bit complicated to get everybody. Why? Well, so the other writers also have some other duties they have to write. Hopefully, Eric Gomez will join us right in a couple of minutes. I know that he usually tries to run in and say hello. Definitely love his feedback on his America and what's happening. But what we have in store for you today is very important. Chivas, obviously, the big talk around the league, the nation. The golazos coming in. We'll be kind of deep diving into. Is it a breather? Are they in a better spot? Of course. I'll dive into a little bit about the game. A big surprise. Two faced off, Gio and the Dos Santos brothers, and the Copa del Rey, which is one of the best tournaments for Mexicans right now that are playing. And diving a little bit about the U20s, U7 that are playing around, also with the Premundial and what's happening in CONCACAF. And obviously, we'll always look back at the chat that's happening around, because this is a live show. We do have several of you that are on that are like to always come on and like to talk about what's going on. If it's as easy as just critiquing us and our looks, or is it obviously very, very good feedback that we have on. So should have a fun show. So let's get started. Tom, before we go into diving into Chivas, I got to ask you anything that you took away from your travels, especially to Malaga. I know that you were mentioning it on your Twitter account about Memo. Here we are, all of us thinking that he should be number one keeper, that the whole world knows it, that one of the best goalkeepers is in Malaga not doing anything. But something interesting that you tweeted out, what was it about the fans that you've spoken to when you went to Malaga about Memo Ochoa?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like all the people covering it from the Mexican side, it's like as soon as Ochoa signed for Malaga, everybody assumed he would be the starting goalkeeper. And I think people in Malaga as well obviously did. It was a big signing for the club. The club basically a few years ago had a lot of money. It was in the Champions League, and the last couple of years it's really, it's dried up a bit, and therefore bringing in Ochoa was like a big coup for the whole club. So, that was what was expected. Kameni's come in and basically he's played really well. And Malaga have got one of the best defense in the league, and he's done his job. He's not made any mistakes, and basically Ochoa's just waiting there in the wings because the coach, that's the coach's decision. And until that changes, I don't think Ochoa's situation is going to be any different, unless, of course, the option is that he could perhaps go out on loan. And you look at the finances of Malaga and the way it's run, and it's they can't afford to lose money. They don't lose money. So I imagine Ochoa's on pretty big wages. So I reckon if a loan deal came up, I'm sure the club would be interested in letting him go.
Definitely. Now, one thing that on your Twitter you said you're talking to mostly fans also, and there's no choice. There's not this much of a discrepancy between Kameni and Ochoa. They think that they have two good keepers, and right now the best. They're not very angered like we are as Mexico fans about Memo starting, correct?
No, they're not. They're. I think they were really happy, and they really liked it when he signed, and there was a lot of interest around it. But at the end of the day, he was like, somebody from inside the club said, when Caballero, the goalkeeper who signed for Manchester City, he said when it was him and Kameni, there was absolutely no debate about who was the starter. It was Caballero. And then as soon as Ochoa came in, it was expected that he started. But when Kameni was playing so well, there is now no longer a debate. That's his exact words. Where there's not a debate anymore. It's not. They aren't talking about should it be Kameni, should it be Ochoa. Kameni is the starter. He's done it. He's playing really well. Full stop. Period. That's it. I mean, it's really quite stark when you speak to people over there.
Yeah, they obviously have no bias and that are not ingrained into the Mexican football like we are in diehards and for us. Piojo was recently quoted saying that it's more of a capricho that he's not on. That he's more of I'm the coach and I'm gonna do whatever I want. What do you think about that?
No, I think that says more about Piojo. I mean, I don't think a club like Malaga who are going for a European place are gonna do it just because he's being a bit stubborn about it. That he thinks, oh, this is the way forward. No way. He's doing it because it's best for the team. I mean, Kameni's played consistently in the Spanish league. He played many seasons for Espanyol. He's a good keeper. He's the same age basically as Ochoa. He's experienced. He's proven. He's playing well. Why would he change it? I mean, the coach has absolutely no reason to change it at the minute. And like I said, until Kameni has a couple of bad games, I mean, Ochoa's played really well in the Copa del Rey. So, he is there, he is knocking on the door, but until Kameni kind of starts playing badly, then why would a coach change it? I mean, if the keeper's playing well, that's it. It's quite black and white.
And for that change, it's got to be a drastic bad game. It's not having one bad coming out and whatever. I think that he was just, obviously he's got to be 2, 3, 4, 5 games where Kameni is not in rhythm or an injury or whatever for Memo to actually come in. The good thing is that they will keep on going. You will see Memo keep on playing in the Copa del Rey, and which is good. I hate to not ask you about other places since you did go and you visited. Obviously Carlos Vela you spoke a little bit about in the morning. Before the show, but anything on when your Villarreal visit with the Dos Santos brothers and that you were seeing where you said you catch the game.
Yeah, Jonathan Dos Santos scored a pretty amazing goal against Malaga. I think very much playing on right midfield, really bright. You can tell he's got the Barcelona training in his technique and also in his pressing. He really knows when to press and when to go back. And I think that the thing with Dos Santos and watching him live over a full 90 minutes is like, especially when he's playing now on the right midfield, I'd love to see him at that right wing back for Mexico. I think he could be. I think I've said on the show I'm not 100% convinced by Paul Aguilar. I know many people think that's unfair because he's done it for the national team, but I'd like to see Jonathan Dos Santos being given a go on the right wing back slot because he's played before for Barcelona as a right back. So I think it's something a little thing that Herrera could try out in the future without doubt.
All right. Well, Well, good to see that. Joining us right now, also just jumping in, is Eric. Eric Gomez is in Mexico City, if I'm not mistaken. Eric, can you hear us?
That is correct. I can hear you guys. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, if you don't know Eric, I know I have been on the show for a little while, especially on the live. Just a little bit about, but people don't know, at Get Eric Gomez Fox. Just tell us a little bit on what you do, sir. You are, I forgot your title. I think you're like the superb director of Fox Sports or what? Tell us a little bit about.
But yeah, I work for Fox, so that's good enough.
All right. Well, good. Well, good to hear from you. All right, and last but not least, Tom, before we go into the Chivas and what's going on, since you're in England, are you get a chance to watch Layun? Are you gonna go watch one of those games?
No, it's a bit far down to Watford. I'm trying to get an interview with him, but the press officer there is just saying he's just been inundated with requests. I mean, and I said I'll go there. Just tell me, I'll go the next day. It's about 3 hours from here, 3.5 hours. So hopefully it comes off in the next couple of weeks, but I don't hold much hope because he said, look, it's just been ridiculous the amount of requests we've had. I think they've been taken aback by it. When I think their Twitter account and stuff, I mean, you look how many followers Layun's got compared to Watford and stuff, and it's like, that's a massive signing for a club that size.
Well, good to hear. And obviously, your opinions. You were, we talked a little bit about that, but you're English. You see it. You know more about the English game. What did you think? Is there something going on with that transaction? Everyone in Mexico, everyone is just kind of thinking of why would he go to such a club that's in the second division in England, not even in the top 5. For you, was it a mistake? I know for Piojo, him saying that it was a mistake. If you could have talked to him, he would have tried to talk him out of it. But what are your thoughts on that, especially coming over the signing?
I thought that. I think that a lot depends on what happens at the end of the season. I mean, obviously, if Watford go to the Premier League, then it's a great signing. Layun will have had 6 months to bed in, and I think the thing is, obviously, it's not ideal to be in the second division. I think, nevertheless, the Championship is an incredibly difficult league. I mean, you come here and the weather's absolutely awful at the minute. It's freezing cold. I mean, it's just not a nice place to play. Coming from like Mexico City where he's playing in the Azteca every week, so it's going to be a really hard learning curve for Layun. I know he's been to Italy before, but it's quite different here. And I think that the positive that I don't know if Herrera's really seeing is that obviously you've got Udinese and Granada, which the 3 clubs, Watford, Udinese, and Granada, just loan players back and forth all the time. And I'm sure that if Layun has a good season with Watford, I think he'll be moved on to Granada or Udinese.
Yeah, this is what probably everyone else is just saying, that there's got to be some kind of stipulations on there where you're seeing. I don't see Layun saying we're staying in the Segunda.
I think another interesting thing is what does it say about what European clubs think of Mexican players. I mean, if that was his best offer on the table, and this is a player who's captained the team that's just won the title, who played in the World Cup, who's absolutely fixed, in the national team. I don't know. I think it's a bit of a reality check as well. Don't know if you guys agree.
Or it could be someone really desperate to get out and show that you don't want to fail in Europe like you did before at in Italy. So you see both books. All right. Well, let's switch it out. Especially Eric joining us in Mexico. Sarah obviously sees the news. Very, very international coverage here. The Mexican Soccer Show, U.S., Mexico, and England, which is great to see, to hear. So thank you all that are joining on 17. Thank you to Jazz Rocker, Oliver Pfister, Mario Verber, who are on the chat. Definitely, if you're on and you can get on the chat, look around because it's definitely fun times. Let's go into it. Let's go talk about everything that's on the news right now, especially with Chivas after a game yesterday where it was very, very surprising. Who'd have known that they would have come out. The crowd was there, having probably the #1 attendance record in Mexico over on Sunday. Don't know what percentage the capacity of the stadiums, but definitely filled the Omni Life. And obviously a very good game. 2 great golazos from the 2 guys that needed to show up in Chivas, from the talk about the week before, that these guys are not motivated. Totally different Chivas team, a totally different dynamic. We saw a Chepo that was smiling. We saw a Chepo that was celebrating, looking at it. And then obviously it's Mexico. It's the drama at the end. A little bit of the refs and what happened. Penalties here that wasn't called. So definitely a fun game. On the other side, if you were watching the game, if you weren't, I'm sure you were watching another football game that was really exciting in the NFL. So I got a chance to rewatch the Chivas game because I was watching the other game.
I can't believe that would be so. That's terrible.
As soon as I looked to go, there was a brutal game, Seahawks and Green Bay. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Eric, you're in Mexico City. Obviously, you're there. You're an aficionado of America. So what's your take on the win? Is this finally a breather for Chivas? Or your thoughts?
I mean, I got into it was a fantastically played game for Chivas. I thought that they desperately needed 3 points, and it didn't matter how they got those 3 points. I thought that they played well. They didn't play as flashy as you would expect Chivas of old to play, but I think that's completely an afterthought at this point. They just have to worry about grabbing the points that are at stake. They can't worry about pleasing fans in the stands and making sure that they get a good bang for their buck, despite the fact that most tickets were on sale for one peso, which is I think like 4 cents right now.
Yeah.
In U.S. dollars, but whatever. Yeah, 7 cents. There you go. So, for 7 cents, I think they got a pretty good show out of it. But still, I understand that Chivas fans have higher expectations for this team. I understand that most of them aren't even saying they are getting into that whole relegation discussion, and they're instead focusing on trying to make the playoffs, which is a very valiant effort. I think that in the end, Chivas will make the playoffs this year. This is a pretty weak Liga MX fold at this point. I thought that teams that would come back stronger for this tournament, such as Chiapas, have been pretty disappointing. I think that teams that were on the cusp last season, like Tijuana, will continue to miss out. León will continue to miss out. So I think this is a very weak fold of teams for the Liga MX. Chivas, they were lucky to get a win, obviously, because of that disallowed goal for Pumas, which was, quite frankly, a terrible call for Roberto Garcia Orozco. I mean, there's no way that should have been called offside. Even then, you catch some breaks, and they played well enough to win, so they definitely deserve it. I think that this next game that they've got going on is going to be a very difficult test for them. They have not been a good team away from home. They're a good team at home. In September, I think. But it's going to be very interesting to see if they can put 2 together and get 6 out of 6 in, I think, the span of 7 days. That would be fantastic for the league. It would be fantastic for fans, and it would really put the relegation thing on hold for them, really.
Yes, and I share with you on taking obviously your fans of another team, looking at when Chivas does well. I think it's great for the league, and having our most popular teams, and I've said it before, doing well. I mean, having the relegation will just the eye on the league. Tom, Eric said something very interesting, saying as to say that they will make the playoffs. What's your take, obviously, on the team, and looking at a weak league like Eric says, and even saying it, I mean, step at a time for the first in the first game that's coming out. But your thoughts on, are the players finally getting a chance to play together, or was it more the individuals that shined in yesterday's game?
I mean, obviously you got the 2 goals, both of them brilliant, especially Fabian's opener. But I think the biggest take from yesterday for me was the fact that the stadium was full. I mean, the stadium, the OmniLife, has just been an absolute disaster since it opened in 2010. I mean, really difficult to get fans. It's outside the city. It filled up. I thought, it's an example of what Chivas should be. I mean, the fans behind the team and getting behind them and chanting, and the lack of negativity. It's always when you go to the stadium, it's just so negative. And I thought the players responded with a decent performance. I thought they did well. Like Eric said, just at the minute, it's just about getting those 3 points and getting away from relegation. Thought that they didn't create that much, really. I mean, obviously they scored the 2 goals. Apart from that, I think there's still that bit of lack of creation, although they shouldn't be with the players they've got right now. I thought it was a massive boost that Angel Reyna scored, because he's a big player even now, even though it's taken him over a year to score a goal in the Liga MX. That's his first goal in 17 games for Chivas. So, if he can find some form, that's great news for Chivas. I thought defensively they looked quite good. Carlos Salcedo, 21 years old, coming from Real Salt Lake, I thought had a very good game. Looked like he really fit in, and more than anything, just a lot of confidence. So yeah, I think it looks okay for Chivas. If you want the negative take, it's that Pumas were absolutely awful. I thought they played without direction, without a real game plan. You couldn't tell what they were intending to do, how they were intending to win the game. So I'd say that despite Pumas being so bad, they almost let Chivas come back. And like Eric pointed out with that last-minute offside goal that wasn't offside, I mean, Pumas almost got a point. And I've no idea how when you look at the 90 minutes. But, so I think there's still a vulnerability about Chivas at the minute. And more than anything, they're still nervous. When there's only a goal in it, they're still nervous. And the next couple of weeks, Chivas, especially this game on Sunday now against Leones Negros, is absolutely massive, and Leones Negros are a really difficult team to play against, who were so unlucky last weekend to go down 1-0 to Querétaro with a really dubious penalty, and before that I think they were 8 games without defeat. So it's a big game on Sunday now.
Yes, especially, but coming up in the game now, right before we got on and discussing obviously what we were talking about with Tom and Eric, if you already know, Fabián de la Mora is injured. 3 weeks, it looks like he's going to be out. Brand news. I mean, I think we're just getting it off the ticker, as like they used to say it. So with great good news and coming in with a great game, with a great golazo, we're seeing that after the game, it's not such great news, especially for Chivas fans for the game. The player that gave you the individuales, I mean, that's a pretty low blow, right, Tom?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the only thing I'd say is that you look at the Chivas bench yesterday, and I think one of the big things for this season, and Eric's, we've mentioned the playoffs for Chivas, and I think the biggest piece of evidence in favour of that would be looking at that Chivas bench yesterday, because you had Cubo Torres, Aldo de Nigris, Carlos Fierro, Nestor Vidrio, Tonio Rodriguez, the goalkeeper. So I think that's a really, really strong bench, and I think that now Chivas have finally got a squad. Vergara has finally spent the money. That he's got a team that Chepo, when a game needs changing, he's got options on the bench.
What options does he have for next weekend? I mean, other than those aren't just almost the same players that were there last year that didn't really do anything as a forward position.
Yeah, but
right?
I mean, you've got Brizuela on the right now, so you assume that someone like De Nigris with Fabián and Fabián's out, but Brizuela on the right and maybe Reyna now on the left, that he's going to have enough service that he really. I mean, I know De Nigris was pretty awful for Chivas last season, but at the same time, the service he received was equally as awful. So, I don't think he should shoulder all the blame for that.
Gotcha. Eric, Fabián de la Mora not being in for the 3 weeks, especially for a key game against Leones Negros, will it affect the team's morale?
I think it will, but as Tom mentions, there is quite a bit of internal competition within that squad because there are so many quality players. So it does give somebody else an opportunity to kind of step up and say, I can shoulder the load now that Fabián is out. There are several ways that Chepo can go with this. Now that he's obviously committing to that 4-4-2 that we've always seen with Chepo. We've seen Giovanni Hernandez come on in both games off the bench, and he's done a pretty good job in a very limited amount of time. I think he has 48 minutes. We also have seen David Toledo. I believe he started one game, and then he came on in another game. And then you've got Raul Lopez, who has been a pretty good surprise for Chepo. Israel Castro, all of those guys that I've just mentioned can play as central midfielders. So, as Tom mentioned, I think the quality option is to put a guy like Reyna on one side and then to put somebody else like Brizuela on that other side. If you want to switch it up front, then yeah, you've got Cubo Torres, you've got Omar Bravo, you've got Aldo de Nigris. I believe at some point during this season they'll be able to reactivate Rafa Marquez Lugo. every single player, except for Giovanni Hernandez and Raul Lopez, all of those guys have played for the Mexican national team at one point or another. So it's not like they're throwing up a bunch of scrubs Chivas do in years past. I think that this is probably the best team that they've assembled in the past 3 years, maybe, and it's going to work out. Shoulder the load that Fabian would have create for at least.
It's a little hard of hearing you towards the end, but that's definitely to your point. I mean, you did say that obviously these are players that are coming in from the national team that have played also with Chepo. A lot of them did play with that, with Chepo for a while. Yeah. So we'll see where we're.
Chaton as well. He's on the comeback trail as well.
Oh, Chaton! Give up on Chaton. Tom, he's gonna get injured.
Still got hope.
Injured, and it's not gonna happen. There's a great hope. All right, let's move on. Obviously, your big news from America and Eric. Obviously, you're here, and definitely like to hear your thoughts on. We know that Xolos, it's a hard place to play. Most of their games that they've won in the last 3 years have been at home games. Very, very tough on the road. But obviously, Benedetto coming back. Some of the players. What did you see in your team? What lacked? And was it surprising that the Campeón starts off in their second game losing 1-0? To a team that didn't make the Liga last week?
Yeah, I think that this was the risk. This was the inherent risk when was the type of backlash that you would have expected from firing a guy who won the title 3-4 weeks earlier. That is to say, Antonio Mohamed. 180 minutes for Americas Matosas. 10 of those minutes have been spectacular. The opening salvo against León was brilliant. I think that's what people will expect from Matosas down the line. Muddled from 15th minute of that on, and we have not yet seen an America team that is able to corral the opposing offense and to establish possession and try to dominate the instances of the game. I think that we've seen a Matosas team try to play on the counter, and they don't have, aside from Quintero, they don't have the speed to do that. Benedetto's a great guy to have up front. I can't believe that he's more so than you would see him kind of palling around Oribe Peralta and kind of setting him up for scores as a natural 11 or whatever a secondary striker might be able to do. Peralta is a type of Peralta's a player that's going to be bound. So that's one thing that you can expect. I don't want to see Oribe Peralta starting his runs from midfield because at 31 years old, he does not have the legs. He's never had the legs, really. But now he doesn't have the stamina to be able to do that for 90 minutes. Darwin Quintero, yeah, fine. Darío Benedetto, fine. But then you've got a real problem with America in the middle of that midfield, and that's Cristian Pellerano. Cristian Pellerano had been quite used to going up front as he pleased in Tijuana and trying to create chances for himself. We've seen him do that for the past several seasons. I don't think he'll be able to do that at America, at least not right away. I think teams have clued into the fact that America has no midfield because Ruben Sambuesa cannot be expected to go back and defend. Michael Arroyo cannot be expected to go back to defend. The one guy that was Jesus Molina in last year's squad that you would expect to go back and defend is Cristian Pellerano. He's not doing that at the moment. So unless Matosas goes back and says, hey, we're going to bring some more central defensive midfield help to you, or hey, you've got to stay back and let the offensive players do their thing, then in these coming weeks.
Oh, you said it. Before we go to you, Tom, Eric, one question to you. We've seen some reports coming out, obviously the camp looking at Matosas' tactics and being this offensive team. If you obviously saw León in the last 3 years, some stuff coming about Sambuesa, and other team members just saying, we're going to keep doing it and we can't be that offensive all the time. Do you think there might be already starting some tensions, or is this just obviously rumors to start off in almost with the new coach and coming in with the Campeón?
I mean, the pressure was on for him. And I think that he's been forcing himself to be this team that's going to score 3-4 goals a game. I mean, I think he has the players to build on that in the midterm and the long term, but you can't expect players to come in for a new season, new players, new teammates, and just kind of click from the get-go. I think that he has to find the best position for Quintero. I mean, I think sorry about that. The most spectacular thing for me from that America Tijuana game was seeing how a guy so dominant like Darwin Quintero be completely outclassed and completely outmatched by Greg Garza. I mean, they tried moving Quintero from one wing to the other. Did you see that? And Garza just followed him around for 90 minutes. He was not able to get past Garza. And so what does that tell you? It tells you that America is not – they're not counterattacking correctly because they're not giving Quintero and Benedetto the type of space that they need. And when you put Quintero on a one-on-one with a defensive player that's stronger than him, which Garza is, that he's not going to be able to overpower and just kind of blow through. Matosas, these guys that have been at León with him, a bunch of them he knew since 2011 when he had them in the second division. This is a new enterprise for Matosas as well. So I think, you know, he's going to be pressured to deliver results immediately. But I'll tell you one thing. I think it's better for Matosas to build a team that maybe finishes 4th or 5th in this year's league or in this tournament's league than it was for Mohamed to finish 5th in his first tournament, because Mohamed's style was just not aesthetically pleasing. At least with Matosas, you'll get the odd game where America beats you 4-2, 4-3, and people will go home happy. It's the 1-0ers that we saw against Tijuana that will have people scratching their heads and saying, hey, did Peláez make the acquiring Mohamed?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going.
Tom, thank you, Eric. Obviously, you're right. Watching those games with León and looking at Matosas, and you would see those 1-0 games and be like, how can you win 4-2, 4-1, and then lose as soon as they find a coach that knows how to coach you and in that style. Tom, your thoughts on the game? America coming in obviously in the second week, winning. Haven't seen the flash America that we were looking for, unless the teams are making horrible defensively mistakes. That's where obviously America is capitalizing at least. What are your thoughts?
I think that America is going to take time because Mohamed's style is so different to Matosas'. Naturally, it's going to take time, and there's a few new players that are obviously going to need a bit of time to understand the system and how they're going to fit in. But, I mean, you look at the game against Tijuana, America had 60% possession. I think another thing that we're going to see this season with Matosas and America, we know the firepower that America have. It's unbelievable. You know, it really is. I mean, some of the players they've got now, like Quintero matched with Uribe and then Benedetto, it's scary, you know what I mean? And I think we saw a performance from Tijuana that basically laid a blueprint of how other teams are gonna play against America. I mean, Eric was mentioning the counter-attack there. I think basically teams are gonna set up so that don't give America any space to counter. You know, don't give Quintero any space. I mean, I think that's how they're gonna try and defeat America. They're not gonna go and play them, go toe-to-toe with them. I mean, that's not going to happen because teams are going to be scared of the firepower that America possess at the minute. So I think Tijuana, with their performance, laid down a blueprint of I think what we're going to see for most teams this season. I mean, you know, it takes two to tango, goes the phrase, and I think that if opposition don't give America that space, then I think Matosas eventually is going to have to find a different way of breaking through. I mean, 19 shots for America, but most of those were from long range because Tijuana frustrated him. And I think that's going to be something that Matosas is going to have to kind of find a plan B for moving forward.
Definitely, I think it'll be interesting to see. Coming up next for America, obviously, you have the great one who just celebrated, I think, 42.
The great one.
The great one coming back. Estadio Azteca going in against Puebla next week. But moving on, before we talk about next week, any surprises or any key takes about this weekend aside from America and Chivas? For me, Santos having a start to forget in what it is. Looks like they go away all the players. But any other games or any other clubs that you're seeing not performing, or as a surprise?
I'll go quickly on the Santos thing. I think it's fascinating because I think Santos are quite a long way off at the minute, being what they have been for the last 5-6 years in terms of being a top club. And I think that it's really interesting that the directors there have, they've taken away basically 4 key players. I mean, Rodriguez, in midfield, Peralta, Quintero, and Osvaldo Sanchez. I mean, that's taken out the spine of the team. And I think that Caixinha is going to need 12 months. I honestly think it's going to take that long for him to get this team working again. And I think that, we know that in Mexican football, and, in many leagues these days, that managers aren't given time to kind of construct squads. So I think it's a fascinating kind of... I think that the Santos Laguna, obviously they're a really progressive club, but will they give him enough time if these results keep going? If he's not winning, if in 2 months Santos Laguna are bottom of the league, will they stick with it? Will they stick with this this process that they're going through, this rejuvenation of the whole club? And more pertinently, do they have the money now? Grupo Modelo is no longer behind in them. I think there's plenty of. I mean, Iraragorri said they do. I mean, but sometimes the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? And they've sold the best players for big money. I mean, Quintero, the amount of money he went for, and obviously they brought in a couple of players from South America, but are they going to reinvest? Are they going to stick with Caixinha? I think it's going to be a fascinating club to watch this season.
Good. I mean, Eric.
Because they're still paying off. They're still paying off that sale from Grupo Modelo. You don't get a team that just built a brand new stadium and a brand new shopping mall and all the bells and whistles that they've got at the Torreon complex for $50 million or even $100 million. I think that Santos Laguna, led by Iraragorri now, they're still paying Grupo Modelo. And like you said, Tom, proof is in the pudding. They're not spending heavily the way that you would think they should be, seeing as how they've gotten at least $20 million from America in the last 2 tournaments. One for Peralta and the other for Quintero. $20 million. I don't see $20 million worth of refuerzos, worth of new players on the pitch for them. I just don't. They're going to struggle. They're going to miss the playoffs. I think that they should. You know what? I don't think that they should fire Caixinha, because obviously it's not his call to sell Quintero, especially if the owner needs money. I mean, if I'm wrong, they can come out and tell me that I'm wrong. But we've talked about this several times, and I believe that they absolutely do not have the funds to have this first world Mexican team that's going to compete at the CONCACAF level, that's going to compete at the Copa Libertadores level. They just don't have it. Now, my quick surprise or my takeaway from this second week is you've got 5 teams that are undefeated in the league. 5 teams, I see 2 of those teams making the playoffs. The other 3 are going to crash and burn. Feel free to make your own assumptions as to which of the teams I'm talking about, but I'll tell you this. The leader of the tournament right now is Veracruz, so that's how wacky you were able to look at the Liga MX after two weeks.
Veracruz coming, obviously, surprise, and you're seeing that all over that they are number 1. Chivas and America have tweeted out having the same points. Obviously, who would have thought? Anything else on the week, Tom? For the weekend games, Chiapas, Atlas looking like a contender, like always. It has been obviously with the new money. They have the means. Any other surprises for last weekend?
I'm not sure about surprise. I think it's early. I think some of the teams struggling for fitness as well. I mean, it's such a weird kind of break in it between the seasons. Some teams have like 3 days break, and some have like 6 weeks if they don't make the playoffs. So I think it always a bit the start of the season, start of the Clausura seasons are always a bit kind of up and down, and you're not sure quite what to expect. I think that another interesting thing here is Leon and Pachuca. Obviously, Carlos Slim backed 2 clubs that seem to have done quite important things in the last couple of years. They both had a change of manager over the off season. Got Leon with PC coming in, Pachuca with Alonso, both from abroad, both don't really know the Mexican game that well, and they both started with 2 losses. You've got Pizzi at Leon saying that he hasn't got the squad. I mean, you look at some of the players Leon have got, and he's saying he doesn't have the squad. So that I think that's interesting. And Pachuca, I mean, I know Eric Gutierrez and Irving Lozano are with the Mexico under-20s, but you expect better from this Pachuca team, which I still think is definitely a top 5 team.
How we did have some problems.
I think they're the best 5 teams in the Liga MX, and Alonso's just not got it going at the minute. So 2 new coaches coming in. We all know the nuances in the Mexican game. It's not it's not the same as a Europe or a South American league. It works in its own way. So can they turn it around? How long will they be given the same thing? I think especially for 2 clubs that have so much money behind them and that are kind of pushing things forward, progressive teams with top youth systems. So it'll be interesting to see how they move in the next few weeks.
Yes, exactly. I mean, a lot to see, especially with the players. Really quickly for next week, it's interesting. Obviously, probably Chivas and Chivas, obviously, Leones Negros, probably the team to watch. Obviously, with the relegation battle that's happening, and obviously America going into Puebla. I don't really see any other games being super attractive, especially so early in the teams or in the leagues. But hopefully, and just like Eric mentioned, top 5 teams really quickly: Veracruz, Atlas, Cruz Azul, Toluca, and Querétaro. To Cruz Azul making it happen. It feels like America and Chivas always steal their spotlight, but they've won 2 games, start of the game, so good job for them. Let's switch it on really quickly as we kind of have a closing of the show. Thanks, guys, again for joining in. A little bit about the U20s really quickly, and then maybe just touch on El Tri in the calendar 2015 already with some of the friendlies that are happening. I kind of hear your thoughts. But before we go into El Tri, kind of the U20, we're seeing that talking with you, Tom, you mentioned is the CONCACAF. We really just smashing everyone. And winning comfortably. I know that obviously it was Cuba but in this tournament and that it is it something that around this area, CONCACAF, are we that much better, or is it just kind of a weak conference right now in the under 20s, under those kind of tournaments?
Well, I think this Mexico team's pretty good. I think it's got some really good players. And I think that it's re-emphasised this under-20s CONCACAF tournament that Mexico, I think, is quite a long way ahead of the rivals right now. I mean, I don't think there's any other way around it. The argument that do Mexico need to be going to, will it have the competition to kind of move up a level? But Mexico will now go to the World Cup in New Zealand as I assume one of the top 5-10 teams there without doubt, and I think that the way the youth teams now in Mexico, if you speak to people within the federation, they're getting invites all the time. So they're going to China, they're going to Spain, they're going to all over the world to play these tournaments because people now organising tournaments want the Mexican national team there, the youth team, because they know the quality that they bring with it. So yeah, I think it's definitely the number 1 in CONCACAF by quite a way at youth level right now, and I think that I like this side. I think they've got a good few players, and a goalkeeper to come in like Raul Gudiño, so I think it's got a decent chance of doing something in New Zealand later in the year.
Eric, I mean, obviously to you, looking at the history of the U20s and U17s, how good is this U20s team, as Tom mentioned, and is it compared to past sides? On the U20, we haven't won the World Cup, but I know obviously we've been close, being in the, I think, top 3, top 5. Yes, top 5 at least. Third place. Sorry about that. But what do you see? Obviously, this U20 team in the preparation and how it's been. Is this the new way that we've had since taking them out for so long? Clubs definitely missing them, as you can see. Choque Lozano, even many people saying about Cubo Torres. What's your take compared to other past sides? Will be able to make a dent, maybe a championship, if nothing less. What will be a failure in New Zealand for this U20?
Yeah, you take a look at what teams in the past have done. at least from 2005 on. I really enjoyed the carryover from 2005 U17 to 2007 U20, where you had guys like Carlos Vela and Giovanni Dos Santos and Chicharito Hernandez. Just that was a dream team. However, you got to play an Argentina team in that U20 tournament in 2007 that had Sergio Aguero and Lionel Messi. So, that is a pretty titanic matchup that you're not going to be able to get through. Again, 2011, getting that third place side, they kind of ran on fumes there towards the end, though. That was a good team. They had quality. But, you'll realize that some of the players that came from that 2011 team, Ulises Davila, Edson Rivera, Jorge Enriquez, Chaton, a lot of those guys have kind of stalled in their development with their careers. I think the difference for this 2015 U20 team is that you're getting guys that are already proven in the pros. Irving Lozano is just absolutely tearing the CONCACAF tournament a new one because he's been at the top level of professional soccer in Mexico for 2 tournaments now. He's just an absolute firecracker of a player who is dominating because he's at a different level. And then you got guys like Eric Aguirre from Monarcas Morelia, who's actually even scored as well, despite the fact that he's a right back in the Liga MX, playing like a young, I guess like a young Miguel Layún in the sense that he's good at defense, but he'll also run and showcases for his strikers. And speaking of strikers, you've got Alejandro Güero Diaz, who was lights out in the U17 tournament in 2013. Now he's I think he's prepping for the eventuality of having to replace Raúl Jiménez at America. Not the worst guy to have in that position. He's a stocky 5'9", 5'10", strong guy, great eye for goal, and he's had a chance to debut as well in the Liga MX. So now you're seeing a group of guys who, despite the fact that there's not a lot of carryover from that U17 team in 2013, these guys are not proven in the pros, and I think that they have a pretty good opportunity to go deep, especially when you look at the U20 sides that CONMEBOL South America is putting out. Not the best group of players that I've seen from a Brazil side, from a Uruguay side. I mean, even Argentina, aside from Giovanni Simeone and Angel Correa, who they sold from San Lorenzo to Atletico Madrid. Not the best group of guys that you've seen from an Argentina team. So I think that Mexico has a chance to get far this year.
Good to see that, especially with what we do have. One of the questions on the chat was, when's the next game? Looking at the schedule, it's a very different type of tournament where it's not kind of a bracket type, but it's just ones that make it. You have Mexico versus Haiti in coming up on the 23rd or 24th, looking at it. And then, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's one to see the preparations that we're having. Obviously, I think from now on, looking at the any of the under 20, under 17 competition, Mexico's seen as one of those teams that are going to be hard, and that we could. Why not take it all when we've already won twice, and especially that third place finish, which would used to be more of the African teams that were dominating, and Nigeria winning. I think obviously Argentina. And if it wasn't those random those better teams that are out there, but we're looking to be a very, very powerful. Let's switch it out to questions that we do have on the chat. We have a chance to just kind of ask around what are some questions that you guys have, regardless of what the topic is centered around Mexico. And we do have one. What's wrong with Puebla? Oliver Fitzer kind of asks around that what is wrong with Puebla. I don't know if Tom you'd like to tackle that one, or Eric. What can we say just really quickly?
I think the Puebla are in the situation in terms of relegation because of they've been rubbish for the last 3 years. So I don't think the problem's kind of right now. I actually think that this season, with the players they brought in terms of Alustiza, Hercules Gomez, who else? A couple more, Luis Gabriel Rey. I think they've got a few strikers now to get them the goals that they'll need if they are going to stay up. So I think they're a better team than they were last season. I don't think there's much doubt about that. I think the problem that they've got this season, though, is that you've got Veracruz looking really good, and what's that striker called, Furch, who scored 2 goals the weekend. He looks really good, and then you've got Chivas, who have also look a lot better than they did last season, and then there's the other one, Leones Negros, who are really getting it together, who are really now a solid team, very, very difficult to beat. So I think that you've got the 4 relegation candidates, and all of them are better than they were last season, and that possibly you can make the argument that Puebla is the one that maybe fell behind a tiny bit, but I think there's a long way to go with this relegation battle. We're going to have quite a few more games between the candidates as well, and I think those will end up being vital. Puebla next weekend, America away, and then Cruz Azul at home. I mean, they've got a couple of really difficult games. I mean, they need to stick in there. I think it's going to be a fascinating relegation battle this season.
Yeah, I think Tom's right. Hit it right. It's just not the type of team that you would expect a relegation contender to build in order to avoid that. I think Veracruz did a fantastic job of building their team. I think Chivas did a really good job of fortifying their areas of need. I think Leones Negros and Puebla are really going to struggle because of their deficiencies within the market. Take a look at Puebla's first team squad, and you can look at that via Wikipedia. Look at how many players they have on loan. Look at how many players. When you have that many players on loan and you're playing a relegation situation, I mean, I'm not saying that guys like Hercules Gomez and Efrain Cortés and Eisner Laboa and Sergio Perez, these are all pros. They know what's at stake. But I think when you belong to the club and you are there for the long haul with the club, there is that much more responsibility within the squad to say, this is a really serious situation and we need to pull ahead. When you've got that many players on loan, I think that maybe the expectation or the mindset is, yeah, it's going to be very terrible for us if we go down,
Tommy, there.
But I belong to a different club. I'm going to go back to a different club.
Yeah. No, I think that you look at the way Puebla's run as well, and Eric's mentioned the loan players, and you just get the feeling that every time it comes up to the draft day, they're just like looking at a list and being like, yeah, we'll have that one. There's no kind of like forward planning. I mean, every season it seems like you've got 6 new starters in that team, and then you've got a new coach or 2 coaches a season. It's like, I know we talk a lot about Chivas and all the changes there, but Puebla's another side. It's just not very well run at the end of the day, and that's why I think it's it's fighting relegation.
Sorry, guys. Something got disconnected on my end. I apologize. Good thing that I kind of kept going. Thought it was off, but good. Let's go ahead and see any last thoughts. Obviously, with all that's been happening, I know that we mentioned El Tri having some key dates already, non-being FIFA dates against the U.S. Just a question to you guys. There's a possibility of going against the U.S. 3 times this year, being one in the FIFA friendly that we have that is not a FIFA date in April. Obviously, the Copa de Oro, but that game, the playoff game to go to the Copa Confederaciones will probably be in November, if I'm not mistaken. Being 3 times this year against the U.S. How meaningless, in my opinion, will be that April game against the U.S. Even though it is a rivalry, it's not needed. We mentioned it last week, but looking as the calendar awaits for Mexico, what are your thoughts on already Paraguay? There's some thoughts already of Brazil and then Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Mexico's kind of playing around with. What are your thoughts, especially in how many official games Mexico's playing this year? Probably a record number.
Hey, I mean, I think that, and Jason Markowitz is asking also in the chat if there are, I think this ties into my answer, if there are any under the radar unders that have El Tri potential in the league. I haven't seen any yet. I think there's an opportunity for players like and maybe guys that have ties to the United States like Ventura Alvarado to step up and at the club level so that they can be considered at the national level. Aside from getting quote, unnecessary games with the United States or unnecessary friendlies with other teams, I think it's a good opportunity for Miguel Herrera to try out some guys at some positions of need for Mexico. I think Jason's right on the nose in saying that Mexico doesn't have any central defenders right now. I mean, beyond Hector Moreno and beyond Diego Reyes, who's not playing, and beyond Rafa Marquez, who's 35, who else is in that pipeline? Hugo Ayala? I mean, I think we've seen Hugo Ayala at the national team level, and he's been terrible. You know, what was that?
I said Johnny Magallon is available.
Johnny Magallon is, I think, what is he, 33, 32? If he could run somehow being propelled by his ears, he'd be a lot faster than what he is. He's not fast. I think he's one of those guys that's good at the club level, though.
But what about Copa America? Johnny Magallon and Hector Reynoso. Eh? No one's going to get past them, are they?
Jesus Christ. That sounds awful. I mean, even at a joke level, that sounds 8-0 to Bolivia right now. You know what I mean?
Whenever I think of Reynoso, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when Jackson Martinez was playing for Chiapas, and I think he just absolutely elbowed him in the face. And whenever I think of Reynoso, I just think that Jack Martinez was just so much quicker and better than him that all he could do was fling an elbow at him. But yeah.
Yeah, when I think of Reynoso, I think of him playing the 4 games of his life at that 2011 Gold Cup. Which was not, thanks for that, Hector.
Thank you to the Clembuterol for that. All right.
Right. One quick defender. What's he called? Jordan Silva in Toluca.
Yeah. I think we haven't seen enough of him though.
No, I don't think we have. But I like what I've seen. I think he's absolutely massive. He's like built a bit like Massa Rodriguez, and I think that's a massive plus because you look at some of the defenders that are getting shots now, and you know I worry that coming up against a more physical team they're going to struggle. So it is early days for Jordan Silva, but I like what I've seen so far, and he can play at fullback as well, so he's a bit versatile. So I don't know. It's just a name that I think is worth watching out for there.
Right.
Good. Kind of sad that we're really trying to find for those defenders, but it is a reality. All right, guys. Great show. Obviously, thank you, Eric, for coming on. And Tom, I know that it's probably, 2 a.m. Where you're at right now?
Look at the clock behind it. It's right there. Look at the clock. 2 a.m. Is that whiskey or is that apple juice? You don't have to answer. I'm just curious.
This is something you might not have seen before. It's called Iron Brew.
Oh man, you had me this close to swearing when you showed that bottle. I have no idea what that is.
What is it? Is that some kind of orange drink?
Yeah, it's.
What is it? Is it Fanta?
No, Iron Brew.
You want to bring some?
It's
that. All right, I think you got yeah.
It's I think it's Scottish, and they sell it in Northern England. I'm not sure even if they sell it in Southern England, to be honest. But it's damn good. I'll tell you that much.
But is it a carbonated drink? Is it a juice? Is it like a energy drink? All right, gotcha.
Scottish imports. Scottish imports are big right now. You got You got David Moyes doing well in Spain.
Tom, thank you so much for jumping on. When are you back in Mexico attending the games?
About January 30th.
All right.
Soaking up the sun here first.
Getting
Getting that sun.
What was that? Getting in. What's that? John Beatles song? Standing in the rain, you'll get an English tan. It's I Am the Walrus.
Yeah.
All right, and then Eric, what's new with you? 2015.
2015, man, I hope to go to some Gold Cup games or Copa America games. We're also working on coverage for the U17 World Cup, U20 World Cup. Tons of work, tons of L3 work moving forward, and also, all the other good stuff that we got going on at Fox Deportes.
Awesome. Well, good to hear. Thank you both for jumping on. Definitely a voice for the Mexican national team. The knowledge you guys have, so awesome. Obviously, at Twitter, you can find Eric at Eric Gomez Fox, and Tom Marshall at Mexico World Cup. Guys, this has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show live. If you didn't get to catch us on, thank you for listening. We do have an iTunes. We'll be tweeting out usually tomorrow when we get that going. Nayib Moran does a great job. A lot of ways to watch the game, watch the show, and obviously keep us connected. Share this on Facebook. Share this on Twitter. We'll see you guys next week. On Monday, should be back to the regular time. If not, we'll definitely tweet out what time we're having those. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Tom. I'm Wiso from FootBackSports.com. This has been the Mexican Soccer Show.